Welcome back. The panel is here. The former host of NPR's 1A and the new host on MSNBC, Joshua Johnson. Former Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Kasie Hunt. And former Republican Senator John E. Sununu of New Hampshire. Welcome, welcome. I want to start by taking a closer look at that Boston Globe tracking poll. Since Tuesday, the day after Iowa, Bernie Sanders has held very steady and, in fact, regained the lead, though barely, as you can see here in this line graph. Pete Buttigieg has soared from 15 when the week began to 22 now, though his momentum appears to have ebbed a bit. Elizabeth Warren has gained a little, but she's still well behind both Buttigieg and Sanders. Then there's Joe Biden, who has dropped sharply and fallen into fourth place. And then Amy Klobuchar had the biggest post-debate bump yet, 3 points just in this poll today. So New Hampshire is delivering, perhaps, Kasie Hunt, a photo finish. First time, frankly, this century that New Hampshire and the Democratic Party primary may matter.
It's remarkable, Chuck, and I think you're seeing this in how, your interview with Pete Buttigieg, interesting for this reason. He potentially the person who stands to gain the most from a strong, possibly second place finish to Bernie Sanders, who's obviously a local and won big here before. But I think that explains why you're suddenly seeing the former vice president go on the attack against Buttigieg in the way that he has the last 24 hours.
John Sununu, you know these quirky New Hampshire voters better than most, and you've been the victim and you've been the beneficiary at times,
consistent, strong,
depending on the mood they're in.
Voters. No.
What do you expect from these independents? Could they be a problem for Sanders and Buttigiig, or will it launch one?
Well, I think both are going to draw, fairly effectively from the undeclared spectrum, and it's a very broad spectrum. Undeclared voters are on the left, on the right, on the middle. They'll both do very well, and there'll be a story about who can claim victory, and we'll know. We'll have the votes counted. I think you've got to give the edge to Bernie Sanders, who's going to do so well in the Connecticut River Valley and so well on college campuses. To me, the other question or story is, who else can get above 15%? Yeah. Because this is, after all, a race for delegates. Yeah. And Joe Biden is close, Elizabeth Warren is close. Yeah. It's going to be important for both of them to come out of here at least being able to say, we won delegates, we're still in the mix.
Claire McCaskill, Joshua Johnson, I want to show you a couple of quotes that were in the hand-wringing quotes, if you will, from some Democrats. Here's former presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke. There's a school of thought that you shouldn't talk about impeachment and instead talk about infrastructure and health care as if they're mutually exclusive. You can't shy away from the most obvious threat to this country. Jennifer Palmieri, Democratic strategist, the obsession with concocting the Frankenstein to take on Trump has confined us all. It was really about this, that the muddled picture we have here is really this hand-wringing, isn't it?
Well, I think once the Democratic Party is more certain about who the nominee is, you're going to see a real coming together of everyone. I really do believe that. Trump represents the best unifier the Democratic Party could ever hope for. I think one of the things that's going to be interesting Tuesday night, Chuck, is how does Elizabeth Warren do? This is next door for her, just like Iowa was next door for Amy. Right. Amy didn't get in the top 4 in Iowa. Right. The question is, will Elizabeth not get in the top 4 in New Hampshire? And what does that mean for both of them? Right. It is, I think if Elizabeth doesn't get into the top 4 in New Hampshire, then there's going to be a lot of people trying to poach her voters.
Joshua, I look at every resume, if you looked at it through the electability lens, they all have a fatal flaw. And obviously somebody's got to get the nomination. And I'm counting Michael Bloomberg. They all seem to have something you're like, oof, I don't know if that's going to work. But one of them is going to have to become the nominee.
One of them is going to have to become the nominee. And I think one of the things that Democrats are going to remember from 2016 is this whole question of a narrative. I mean, that's exactly why a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters came out of 2016 ticked off, because they felt like the DNC told them, right, no, you're kind of supporting the wrong person. You can vote for who you want, but shouldn't you be voting for? So one of the things I'm interested to see in 2020 is how much we will allow Democrats to make their own choice. The story of who the party is supposed to support is not up to us. Yeah. It's up to Democrats. And the fact that this process is murky is fine. Let them vote. It's okay for voters to make this decision. It's not comfortable. It makes it hard for us to prognosticate. But if there's one thing that at least the people I talked to came out of 2016 feeling, it's that they were told what the narrative was supposed to be, and they felt like votes were kind of being whipped from the top down. I don't know who Democrats are going to pick, but I would presume they'd like to pick for themselves.
So I hear you on that, and there's a lot of theories as to why Hillary Clinton lost in 2016.
For
but
sure.
I covered the entirety of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and it was very clear way before that process was over that he was not going to be the nominee, mostly because African American voters in the South said, we're not going to vote for you. And that was known, and he stayed in it anyway. And some of the anger is on the Clinton side because they feel like he did damage to her in a nominating process that stretched out for months when it didn't have to. So, I think my question for Democrats is, are they going to feel that is an imperative, or are we going to end up in the same place where, like, all the millions of dollars, all the anger is playing out into July while Trump is, doing a victory march?
Well, right now, though, it's the exact opposite. Because if you just look at a glide path, you would say, well, Bernie Sanders is probably the most likely nominee. And some people would say that's the biggest risk for the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Others would say, no, the biggest risk is that Bernie won't be the nominee. And what does that mean to his voters, his supporters?
Yeah.
Where are they going to go? Because to the question of are Democrats going to be unified, I would agree with Claire. The Democrats will unify behind the nominee, whoever it is. I mean, I never thought it would be as easy for Trump to unify Republicans going into the general election after that primary. The real question, though, is can that Democratic nominee appeal to the middle, to the center, to those voters in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan? That's the question.
Whoever the nominee is going to appeal to a lot of women who think the guy in the White House is just a mess.
But that's
and they're
not who
tired of the
elected Trump.
chaos and the drama.
The voter, generally speaking, that elected Donald Trump were those voters in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and
Well, then
Michigan.
you're making
those
Bernie, by the
voters.
way, you're making a Bernie case. In some ways, these folks did want the disruption, Claire. I will say this with the Bernie, when you look at the numbers of Bernie general election matchups with Trump, right, you always see it on the surface, it all looks the same. The swing voter with Bernie is much different than the swing voter with everybody else.
That's true, but I believe the anti-Trump is stronger in the swing voter, at least in my state. I believe the swing voter in my state is more anti-Trump than they are for or against any potential nominee in the Democratic Party.
One other aspect, Casey, since you brought up African American voters, I was interested this week that so much was said about black voters and the plight of black people in the debate on Friday, which just kind of historically to have this stage of mostly white candidates talking very strongly and rhapsodically about the need to support the black community historically is something. At the same time, I can hear black voters saying, if we're so important, why aren't we there? You're talking about us without us. Cory Booker's gone, Kamala Harris is gone, Julian Castro's gone. You got one Asian guy on the stage and 6 well-meaning white people telling us what you're going to do for us when we weren't on the stage anymore.
Can Pete survive his South Bend record with African American voters?
I think he can. I think if he, look, we ain't stupid, all right? We know how to Google like everybody else. Yes. And I think if you have perceived wrongs with the black community, you need to go talk to black people. And I don't just mean talking to like 1 or 2 black exemplars. Like, go to a church, go to a community group, and just take questions and take the heat and let people hear you say, look, mea culpa, this is the sword, I'm falling on it, here's what I did wrong, here's what I have learned that will make me a better president to meet the needs of African Americans as it relates to equal justice. But you have to talk to us directly.
Be very curious what he does post New Hampshire. That probably becomes a one-track focus for that campaign. Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.